Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Easy Mini Painting with me, Christopher Ridge, and I figured that we would knock out more of the alternate sculpts from the Resident Evil 2 board game that you can get as a Kickstarter exclusive, although you can actually just buy them from the Steam Forged Games website. That's what I ended up doing. But these are going to be fun. We're doing more of the police zombies right here. There are just a lot of different sculpts for the police zombies. It's just kind of fascinating, but I like to call these the prone zombies. So why don't we just get started on them here. Now, the first thing that I did was I started with a layer of ash gray for all of the zombies, just using a base coat of that, similarly to how we've done most of the other zombies so far. And I also went over the bases with matte black, again, just the same sort of way that we've done everything previously. Now, one thing that I will note is that in practice, it proved to be a little bit frustrating to get the black onto the base here after having already done the gray base coat, just because of the pile of gore here and having to get to, you know, in between each little piece of gore there. So you might just, it doesn't really matter, it's whatever you want to do. You might just do the layer of matte black for the base and then do the ash gray for the base coat afterward. It's up to you though. And the other thing too is that I would recommend when you're doing these particular ones, the ones that are sort of the crawlers here, we're going to call them crawlers from here on out, I would actually just, you know, if you're going to use some sort of little grip or box or stool or whatever to put them onto, just put their legs over the edge a little bit, because you want to be able to get to the underside of their legs. So just be aware of that. And the first thing that I'm going to start with, though, is I'm going to start with these, you know, chopped in half police zombies right here, and we're going to get their uniforms first. And so we're going to use the same color that we've used for the police zombies so far, which is electric blue. And you can just use whatever sort of brush that you're comfortable with. Just use a smaller one if you can, but you don't need to use anything super detailed. And we're just going to go over all of the shirts really quickly. Shouldn't take too long. These should be pretty straightforward. Don't worry about the belts or anything else. Try to avoid getting this on the skin, obviously, because we want that ash gray color to be the skin color. But yeah, just apply this to the shirt and then move on. Alright, a little bit something like that. Again, all you need is just a basic single layer of the electric blue over the shirts. Might get a little bit tricky getting to the underside of the, you know, like torso, just because of the base there and the funny angle that he's at. But just do the best that you can, and whatever you do will be just fine, I promise you. Don't get too hung up on it, don't worry too much about it. Whatever you do is going to be A-okay. Alright, and there you go. That's all that you need, is just a single layer of electric blue over the police zombies, the severed, halved, bifurcated, I don't know what the word is, but the crawling police zombies. Next up, we're going to move on to some deep blue, and we're going to use that for the hats on the police zombies. And we're going to also use it for the pants for the crawlers, just to sort of give them the sort of, you know, feeling that what they're wearing are basically blue jeans. That's what we're going to give them there. I'm going to start with the police zombies again. You're just going to go over the hats. Very, very basically, very, very simply. Shouldn't be too big of a deal. There we go, nothing major there. You're just getting some dark blue onto the hats there. You might do a couple of layers on the very top of the hats, just because you can see some brush strokes on the very top of the hat there, but after you just let that dry for a minute, you might just go over it with another coat, and that'll be just fine. And then we're going to do the same thing with the pants on the crawlers right here. It looks like they've got some belts on. I wouldn't worry too much about the belts. I would just kind of go over the belts and the pants completely with this blue color, and I think it'll be A-okay. I think it'll be just fine. The only thing to be aware of is that you might need to just be careful of the leg here that's kind of crossing his other leg, because it looks like it's sort of chopped off or chewed off or something like that. So you just want to make sure to leave that a little bit unpainted so that we can go over that with some nice bloody color later on. Alright, and then like I said, just make sure to get the underside of the legs here too. because it's easy to overlook that. It's not going to be a huge deal if you kind of just leave it unpainted too, just because when you are playing the game and you are going to be at a tabletop perspective, the miniature is obviously just going to be on the table like that, and it's not like you're going to be able to look up into the underside of the leg there. But if you just want, you know, for the sake of completionism, just make sure to get all around the leg. And yeah, like I said, just make sure to leave off the sort of nub or something of where that foot is. Maybe there's no shoe, maybe it's chewed up and gnarled up, whatever, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, just try to leave blue off of that. All right, and there you go. So now you just got some nice blue jeans onto the crawlers there. And again, I'm just gonna top up the touch up the very tops of the hats here, just with another color of this deep blue, or another layer of this deep blue, and that'll just bring it all together a little bit. That just makes it look a little bit more smooth and a little bit more solid like that. You can kind of see the comparison between a couple of coats on this side, just one single coat on that side. This is just a little bit smoother and darker and thicker. So, you know, again, you might just do a couple of layers on the top. I don't think that the rest of the hat will really matter, but you might do a couple of layers on the very tops of the hats. Easy as that. That's it. All right, so now I'm gonna rinse off my brush. Next up, I'm gonna take out some dark stone, and I'm gonna use that for the belts on the police zombies, and I'm also going to use it for the shoes on the crawlers there. I'll start with the police zombies, just because it's what I started with before. Try to avoid getting this, you know, dark stone color onto the pile of gore that's sort of underneath it, because it might be a little bit hard to sort of see, you know, where the belt ends and the gore begins. But don't worry too much about it. Just sort of take your time and don't stress too much about it. If you feel like you got a little bit of the brown onto the gore, the miniature's not ruined by any stretch. Don't worry about it. You'll be a-okay. There you go, just a little bit something like that. Again, you don't need to worry too much about getting fine details or anything like that. It might be a little bit tricky to get this right here, these little pouches or holsters or whatever on the underside here. If you want to just leave that leave these, what I'm doing right now, as gray, I think that it'll be fine, and I don't think it'll take away from the miniature at all. But I'm just gonna touch them up here just for the sake of completionism here. There we go, just a little something like that. Again, that might be a little bit of a weird angle to get to, but just do your best. All right, so there we go. Now we've got the police zombies, and again, I'm also just going to touch up the shoes really quickly here. Each one only has one shoe, so it should take just a minute or two. You know, I made a big deal about getting the underside of the leg here, and I still somehow forgot to get it on this other one here. Let me just touch that up really quickly. There we go, nothing special there. All right. And I got the shoes done there completely. Got a little frog in my throat. Okay. And yeah, I've got the shoes down there completely as well. Just make sure that I've got them on all sides. It looks like I do. I think that will be a-okay. All right, beautiful. Okay, so I'm gonna rinse that off. Next up, why don't we get the shirts here for the crawlers? And you know what? Something that I've thought about, we haven't used a lot of purple for the Resident Evil 2 board games. Why don't we just take a little dab of alien purple, and why don't we use that for one of their shirts? And we'll do the thing that we did with some of the male and female zombies in the core game, where we do a little bit of color variety. So let's get one of them to have this blue or this purple shirt right here, and then we'll maybe do like a green or something for the other one. So there you go. So now we've just got a purple shirt on one of the crawlers right there. Again, just a little bit of some color variation compared to all the other miniatures that we've painted thus far for the Resi 2 board game. And like I said, let's use a little bit of a different color for the other one. Why don't we try to do some angel green? This is a similar sort of tone to the alien purple that we've used, but it's a different color. So it's not going to look too distractingly different, but it will still be a little bit of variety, which is what we're going for. All right, and there we go. So now we've got our crawlers right there with some nice colors going. Those look great. All right. Next up, why don't we go ahead and get the hair for our crawlers, and I think we're going to use some desert yellow for that, and I think that that will work as a good blonde color. I think that that will work just a-okay. Shouldn't take too long. They don't have a lot of hair. There we go, just a little bit something like that. It's very, very yellow, but it will sort of get a little bit of more coloration to it after we apply the shade, after it dries and becomes all together and all that. There we go, easy as that. You just get a little bit of blonde hair on each of them. And I wouldn't worry about, I think that you can technically see some hair on the side, like underneath the hats there on the police zombies, but I don't even worry about it. I think that it'll be all right if you just kind of leave them the way that they are. Next, let's go ahead and get the badges that are on the police zombies on their hats and as well as their shoulders. And we're going to use some greedy gold for that. Nothing too fancy, just go ahead and get a single little dab on there. There we go, just a little something like that. Get the badge that's on their chest as well as on their hat and on their shoulder. There we go. That'll be good right there. Next up, we're gonna have a little bit of fun. So why don't we go ahead and get that gore that's coming from those police zombies like that, that really, really prominent gore. Why don't we get some nice coloration on that? Why don't we use some Warlock Purple? Get some nice entrail kind of colors going. And just go ahead and go over each of the little tubes of intestines and guts and entrails and gore. And then when we go over everything with the Quickshade later and we add a little bit of blood, I think that it will have a very striking sort of visual dynamic to it. There we go, just a little something like that. Ooh, oh, that is sickening. And we haven't even gotten to the actual blood or shade yet. Already it looks kind of gnarly, kind of gross. All right, there we go. So now we've got some nice entrails going. All right, and the next thing that we're gonna do is we're going to apply our Quickshade. So we're gonna take out some strong tone and we're gonna go over everything that we've done so far. But I also want them all to be completely dry. Like I think that the layers of the shirts that we've got on the crawlers there is still a little bit damp, and obviously the gore there is still a little bit damp. So I'm just gonna give those a couple of minutes to dry and I'll be right back. All right, and after they are nice and dried like so, we're just gonna go over all of them with strong tone, and that'll give us all the shade that we want and all of the depth and shadow that we want for all the miniatures. And then we're gonna let them completely dry, and then we're gonna go over them with a layer of varnish, and then we're gonna bloody them up a little bit. I would just say that whenever you're doing the Quickshade, make sure to use some big fat no-name brush that you don't care about mucking up. There we go, and you just kind of get it across a whole even layer just like that, and that gives you all of the sort of shadow and depth that you want. And we're going to do that with all of them, and then we're just going to let them completely dry. So I'm just going to get through that really quickly and then come back to them in a minute here. All right, and now those are all nice and dried there. So I think what I'm going to do next is I'm going to apply my layer of anti-shine matte varnish. This is an optional step. I would say that if you don't want to do it, then you don't have to. I've gone into detail in previous videos about the pros and cons of varnishes and whether or not you would feel like you want to use them or not. But I'm going to apply them just because I like how it extends the lifespan of my miniature. So you're just going to take this varnish right here, and you're just going to apply an even coat of it across the entirety of the miniature, base and all. And then you're just going to let them dry, and then after you let them dry, we're going to move on to the next step, which is that we're going to touch up with all of the blood effects, and then we're going to be done. So go ahead and apply this, let it dry, and be right back. All right, and I think that they are pretty much completely dry now, so why don't we just touch up with our glistening blood. That's just going to be what we use to add all of our little tiny blood effects here and there, and then we're going to be done. You can just kind of do whatever you want, whatever sort of comes naturally to you. What I will do is I'll just take out some big fat no-name brush here, and what I'll do is I'll take just a little bit of blood onto the tip of my brush, a little bit like that, and I'm just going to sort of like speckle it, you know, splatter, whatever, around where all of the entrails are, but not completely coat it. You know, you want it to be bloody and you want it to be runny, but you don't want it to be, you know, you still want to keep that pink color underneath. So don't go too nuts. But also, it's obviously a lot of blood, so go a little bit nuts. What we'll do too is I'll just put some little streaks coming behind it like so, to make it look like maybe he's crawling. You can do that if you want. I think that that's just an optional sort of thing. I think that if you don't want to worry about the thin lines like that, and you just want the regular effect, I think that if you just sort of splatter some blood here and there, like so, just like that, then I think that'll be okay. Get some blood on the front here. And we'll also get some on his shoulder. That seems to be sort of a chest wound. And we'll just have some coming out of his mouth a little bit. And coming down his chin. There we go. I kind of also want to get some on his hand. There we go, just a little bit something like that. So we'll just do the same thing with the other one. Just sort of, yeah, like I said, just sort of splatter and dot, and don't go too nuts with the blood around where the entrails are. But also, you know, don't be afraid to really make it clear that there should be a lot of blood. And then we'll just get these guys right here. It looks like there are some wounds sort of on his chest, so we'll just sort of get some dots on about where those wounds are at. Like that, nothing too fancy. Just kind of get it on his mouth a little bit too. Alright, and then we'll go a little bit more crazy with his stump of a leg right here. Alright, I think that that's pretty much all that you need there. We'll just do the same thing over here again. We'll just get some dots on his chest. Just a little bit, nothing too crazy. Some on his mouth, some on his hand, and we'll come down a little bit from his hand. Make it look like some blood is flowing down his hand. And we'll get his leg. And I think that that will just about do it. I think that that will work out just fine for everything. And there you go, everybody. Those are the prone zombies that come with the Resident Evil 2 alternate sculpts miniatures from the Resident Evil 2 board game. Yeah, I like them a lot. I like the pile of gore that are behind the cops there, and I like the sort of reaching up and shambling that the crawlers have there. I think that these are some pretty cool sculpts, and I think that they complement the other zombies that you have pretty well. So thank you everybody for watching. If you liked the video, go ahead and throw it a like. If you want to see the rest of the alternate sculpts from the Resident Evil 2 board game, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Not sure what I'm going to do next, but I'll look into it and see what we can do. But I won't take up any more of your time, so thank you so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.